So that's good. Let's see now, this makes sense because we have a quorum, so we can just vote this way, right? And, but for five of us, you can certainly vote, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, somebody else you need to form.
Vote, right?
Oh, and I was at a meeting last night that Peter Sargent did attend, and
Oh.
he said he would be back till after Christmas. I don't know what he originally told you.
He said 8 meetings. I thought it was 4. And he said, did you know it was 8? I said, no. He said, yeah, it's 8.
Yeah, he said it wouldn't be until after Christmas.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Let's bring the meeting to order. Thanks everybody for coming tonight. First order of business from our agenda. Let's see, we have 3 new items, right? Number 1 is Clyde Fowler.
Unless he's changed his looks.
And name. So maybe we could go on to the next item. That's okay with everybody? Go to number 2, Edward and Sandra LaFreed. Did I say it correctly? Does everybody have a copy of that application? This might kind of ring familiar with some of us. We saw them in September. We had some questions. Nick had sent off a letter which identified those questions, asking the applicant to fill in the gaps for us. The application we have before us is their resubmission and letter filling in those gaps. So this would be, just for the record, application 16-66, map 09-48, lot 02. And Gary, this is here before us because it's a non-conforming structure? Is that
I
correct?
believe so. Yep.
And maybe on a non-conforming lot too?
Yep.
So, what do we have? They want to put on an addition on, to the rear of the camp.
And do you have a list of the questions the planning board needed answered?
I believe so.
Okay.
So in the letter that went, it was addressed to the we needed to know, we wanted them to fill in the information regarding the dimension of the driveway, the elevation of the building compared to the existing building, the square footage of the lot, change the net gain of bedrooms to 0, and make sure that the total square footage of the property is correct. Their response is, so the dimensions of the driveway, they say they park on a common property across the street from behind the cabin. That's their answer. The elevation of the building compared to the existing building. New construction will be 1 foot higher than existing building due to a large rock formation. The square footage of the lot is 6,000 square feet. They said the net gain of bedrooms is 0. And the correct square footage of the lot they show is 60 by 100, thereby equaling 6,000 square feet.
Now, if the existing building is less than, put this right, it's less than 35 feet.
Oh, yeah, I know it is, yeah. These are one-story
One,
buildings.
1 foot isn't gonna,
Right, because it's beyond 100.
actually, is it beyond the 100?
It's 102 feet, the addition.
Okay.
Peter, is the only site drawing we have,
That one?
they're proposing, the one that you, the photocopy you kept? Or-
I believe so, because the new
Didn't include a site drawing?
did not. So they perhaps assumed that we would have kept.
Well, it is not a good, well, it showed this, but there's no dimensions.
I'm just wondering what they mean by, the rear of the camp. Does that mean towards the lake or away from the lake?
The addition,
Yeah,
it's away from the lake.
away from the lake.
That I know,
The
that
addition
shows it, this shows it.
So the
It shows-
original one shows, like Gary was saying, exactly
It's on the rear.
that. I'll pass this down so you can see it. So that the addition's away from the lake, in exactly the 102-foot mark that Gary talked about.
102.
We really need to get back to requiring, the scale drawings, or at least something that isn't written on the back of the napkin.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know, are they in a rush to do this, or?
I don't know.
Have you seen the property there?
Yes, because I was at the neighbors when they did the addition.
My, the reason I asked the question is regarding the lot coverage. I figured it's about 16%. If he doesn't have anything else
Just the building.
unvegetated, it just happens to be the building and nothing but grass, then it's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I just figured.
It's treed, and if I remember, there's a lot of pine trees, a lot of pine needles, maybe a little bit of lawn, but it's a tiny lot, 60 by 100.
So Rich, are you saying that with the present structure and then add on the proposed structure to give us some total? that would be
16, if he does the expansion of the 16, and if you just, that's just the building, so.
Yeah,
I
just the
see.
buildings and with the addition adds up to, 1,008 square feet, and out of 6,000, so about 16%.
16%, so that's,
Probably not.
it's not exceeding 20%, but
Not
it's,
exceeding,
it is getting.
but there's not yet, right, getting close. So it sounds like there's no driveway or parking area, but
It must all be over.
on the other side of the road, yeah. It's just a question of how much walk or patio or anything else that might be there.
Well, you bring up a good point, I mean, should they go, say this gets approved and then they go forward, a couple years out, they wanna do a patio or other things that then become,
You know, then we'll have to.
Keep track of it.
yeah,
We'll have
I
to
know.
keep track of it,
To your knowledge, there's no walk-in patio and stuff there now?
No,
yeah. Okay.
no.
I'm just curious, assuming we go forward with this, are we gonna, is the file gonna consist of your photocopy? I mean, we don't have a drawing.
Right, right, well, we have a couple of options, one of which would be to, append the original copy that
That-
includes that drawing to the resubmitted
Yeah,
application.
yeah, because you tabled it?
I think we clearly need to do that.
Yeah, because you tabled it.
Yeah,
I guess I assumed, I believe this was really just the same application, except he.
Answered-
added new
answered a few
information.
questions that you
Okay.
asked.
indeed.
For some reason, I thought we sent it back, but we did, we just tabled it. Okay. That works.
So as long as we keep this together from a paperwork perspective and information perspective, or at least it would all be together in kind of a cohesive, semi-cohesive. But your point is well taken, George. It's a far cry from an engineered, you know.
Well, it actually just follows up on your point of, say they come to us in 12, 18 months and they wanna put on a patio, what record are we gonna have of what was approved previously?
Well, I guess, I think it'd be really structure, in addition to the present structure, has a value that would be of interest to both the applicant and the town. And it sounds like
I think we could just simply say the existing structure plus the additional will bring the lot coverage to 16%.
16%, okay.
In itself.
Then at least that part is at least captured in this, we
And-
at least have,
And put the 20 as the max,
Right.
so they know.
and 20% is the max. Or not to exceed 20%.
So our ordinance as far as expanding within 100 feet doesn't kick in on this one? Like we just had a little while back, we had to take out
It's beyond 100 feet.
beyond 100?
The addition is,
I would say, correct, your question is
Okay,
well
72
worded, so,
feet for, okay, so.
so with this,
Okay,
you know, if you saw it,
Okay.
two, so that puts it beyond the
Yeah.
hundreds.
okay. Yeah, I remember this one.
So are there questions or concerns we have, I guess, at this point, knowing that the applicant has submitted answers to the questions we had before? They provided that.
you know,
I guess, I don't have any more questions.
Okay.
The elevation will be what, how much higher? A foot, that the whole thing,
According
or
to,
just the new one?
The new ones.
New,
So they
apparently
got-
they put higher because he says the
So the existing camp's gonna stay the way it is?
Yep.
Peter, on the original application, does it talk about what kind of, foundation or footing, or is this just gonna not involve any excavation at all? Cause there's nothing indicated for.
They're on posts, they're on posts and pads, I do know that.
yeah,
I thought it said right on top there, Peter, it says something about no excavation, soil disturbance, or does it
No
not
soil
say?
disturbance.
right.
On the original, it says,
On the original, it says no soil disturbance, but on pond or built on pond.
Built on pond.
post.
Post.
Oh, that's post? Oh, sorry. It's like pond.
Fill in the pond.
But to answer your question, there's no other information about the current structure.
Yeah, no, I was just concerned about the expansion.
So just for clarity's sake, do you have the original application?
think I did send that back. I have the old minutes to that meeting somewhere.
Single story, right?
Okay, you at least have this, I have this, I can always give this to you, and you have this.
Yes.
You have this application?
Yes.
Okay. Right, so I'm gonna recommend that we attach this to the original.
Okay.
Tended cord stuff, way too long, and I throw it out, and it's bird pile. Okay. I would entertain a motion, should the board,
Do we have any conditions at all, other than the standard
Standard.
conditions? I guess probably not, standard condition would address the roof runoff with the, stone bridge. I guess I would make a motion, we approve the application, as submitted, which would include the original application and its second submittal.
With standard practices.
okay,
Those are the standard practices for stormwater runoff
Right.
that we're talking about.
so we have a motion,
Second.
second, any more discussion? All those in favor? So Nick, for your benefit and for the towns, we'll give that to you. Awesome. All right. Okay. Clyde's here. Clyde, we go to you, you had, Any questions on a lot?
Yeah, just to bring you up to speed, it's back to lot 3 from like 5 years ago, which everybody came through here, which I still have a lawsuit pending at this time again on the lot, 5 years later. But what I was getting to is I'm trying to come to some type of agreement down there, and what I wanted to bring to you guys is, where that's a non-conforming lot already down there, is there a way to bring that to the board or anything to, you know, separate that one time? You know how it's got that big right-of-way down there? Is there a way to give them a deed that says, because what they want kind of is me not to be the owner of the lot, but me to have the right, you know, my own piece over there, and they be the actual owner instead of the right-of-way down there. I didn't know if, where there was so many problems over the year with this, if this was brought, you know, by the attorneys, all the proper paperwork, if there was a way to release a piece of that lot to those folks to try to make a peace. You know, that's the happy mediums of mediation right now, but like we're kind of pointless mediating if that's not an option that I even, because I have I think in December I have a conference over, online conference with the other guy, the other party and the lawyers and so forth. So I just wanted to come in here before I had that with him to say, look, we're wasting our time mediating if this isn't something that's even feasible.
What are you missing, some frontage?
What it is like they obviously have rights, a right away down
Yeah.
there, rights to that. I'm all built, I'm there.
Yeah.
I don't really wanna go nowheres. That's the option they want, tear down the house, or this is the happy
Or
medium.
deed that.
So I got a few extra happy mediums thrown in there after I agreed upon a few things, and it was a few more things, but whatever. I'm just at a point I wanna settle this, so either one, I can be freed up and sell the place and just wash my hands of it, or two, just go about it. I mean, cause most of the things they're asking for is stuff they already do anyways. Like I would just assume, give them all the docks and
Yeah.
stuff, but like I said, they don't want me to have like a private entrance onto the lot like I have now. They want me to use the right of way, just like the rest of them do. Like
When you say the lot's non-conforming, do you mean it's not, doesn't have the frontage though? or
I think
is
it was under, what, an acre it's gonna be out
40,000
here?
square
Yeah, I
feet.
think it was, that's,
Oh, okay.
so that, it was a non-conforming lot in
Okay.
that manner there, so that's why I had to come through the board.
Okay.
But like, there's nothing really changing except for me physically deeding that piece to them.
Is that the one that includes that so-called paper road?
Yeah, the paper road. See, I own both houses still on each side of the paper road, so I own right up to the center of that. But like, my house is kind of fenced in anyways, the way it is, so they're looking to propose anything outside the fence be actually you know, they wanna start a new association, a proper one, which I agree, great, you know, let's have an association that mows the lawns, puts the docks in, cause I'm sick of kinda paying to do all that, and it gets used anyway, so that's why there's a happy medium there for both of us, but, we'd have to be able to, you know, put it to you guys to be able to do a deed over to those guys, and then I just keep my piece, or however you properly do it.
I understand what, you're trying to do, but my understanding is you can't make a non-conforming lot more non-conforming, and that's what that would be doing. I don't think we can. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would be of the same opinion, because all that action would be doing like what Rich is saying, from the perspective of conforming or not. We would just make it smaller, more non-conforming.
Right.
Does anybody else have any thoughts on that, or?
I just don't know enough about the background of this to be able to weigh in intelligently.
Yeah, and I'm fine with the answer, whatever way it is. It's not, I'm not trying to persuade it one way or the other. If that's the way that, you know, if I was looking at it, yeah, I see that. That's why I was saying, is there a way to bring it, you know, where there's such a, you know, it's been such a conflict for so many years with that thing that it just, you know, we're trying to make it go away with either. I mean, cause my other options, I just go through, I mean, everybody that, you know, had their chance after, just, they had their 30 days to appeal it, no one appealed it, and then 5 years later get a lawsuit. I mean, it's just a, you know, a timely thing. I'm just, another year, so I was just trying to, if I could have eliminated, I wouldn't. but,
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be great to, I'm sure, to not have,
yeah, I don't even live out there anymore, so. And that goes to the other thing that I guess that answers in the same thing. What's the, out here in Belgrade with your rental, people renting their properties and so forth, is there like, you know, some states have, you gotta be there a month rental at a time, or is there no stipulations in Belgrade?
I don't know of any stipulations.
No.
I know everybody out here rents them, I just wanna know from, you know, yeah, everyone can do that, but any given day, someone could throw a, you know, like if you're down in Key West, you have to do 3 months rentals at a time to be renting out your place, but.
You know, certainly doesn't have any ordinances that even,
No.
we're close to that.
Cause I do rent it out, and that's the other thing, so while it's vacant, at least I can
Mhm.
collect an income on
Mhm.
the thing, cause I don't live out there, so. I'm just trying to weigh out all my options, and, last but least, that's part of this lawsuit that they're coming out with, is the town's fence that's out there. I don't know if you visited it, but they've done the survey out there. It shows that the fence is like 10 feet over onto that. And what it is invading the rights of their use, which is kind of what they're trying to say that I'm doing by having X, Y, and Z on the property. So they want that fence moved to properly so they can get the most use out of their property. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't know where you guys go from there, but maybe you gotta visit the site and see what they mean, but.
So Belgrade needs to move the fence?
Yeah, it's the Belgrade town's fence, but it's like 10 feet over too far. Like, I think the top part
You
is
probably-
correct.
Yeah, do you have a copy of that survey or
Yeah.
something? You need to talk to the town manager about that issue,
Yeah,
okay?
cause they're
Or
just,
they do,
Huh?
or they do.
Oh, they
I'm sure
do.
it's your
Oh.
problem to solve.
I'm just trying to resolve whatever I can resolve, so I
Yeah.
can just get this.
Yeah, someone
over
needs to
with.
talk to the town manager.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'll, bring them in the survey. It
Yeah.
shows clearly that it's off, and
Yeah, okay.
so, whatever they gotta do with that, that's
Yeah.
just one less thing, you
Yeah.
know, but it's small, but that's the whole thing, is
Yeah.
they're saying everybody's interfering with the use of it, so. But that answers my questions, I guess, so when I have my conference call, I can go back to them and say, look, we can't do that, so it's not even an option, so.
Right.
And if you need to cite something, it's actually found in paragraph A of section 12.
But there's been a lot of things, I've been in touch with Gary a few times, just because of the fact that, you know, they're like trying to say, well, it used to have a road down, they used to claim that you could drive from point A to B, because it used to have the hot top there. Well, now they think they can put a road back in, I'm like, you can't even do that, even if you wanted to, you're only allowed to have the 6-foot trail or whatever it is, certain amount. I mean, I built everything pretty much to specs of
Yeah.
what you guys allowed me to do back then, but.
Yeah.
So, some of it's just unrealistic, but at least, you know, now I can throw it back, we can't go down this road, so what do you wanna do?
Yeah.
You know, go to the, I'd rather just throw it on a judge's desk and say, makes sense, either my house gets ripped down, or
Yeah.
one win, one lose, that's, you
Yeah.
know, I don't care if I was the one, let's get it over with.
Yep.
So, instead of dragging it out, but I won't take any more time up, that's pretty much what I had for questions, and I'll get a copy of that survey into
Yeah,
the
town manager.
town manager there, and he can deal with it from
Yeah,
there, so.
okay.
All right,
So Clyde, just to make sure that should you need to reference something,
yep,
like Rich was talking about, so in the shoreline zone ordinance.
Yep.
It's section 12A.
yeah, I do have that book too, so,
Okay,
I
page
just,
7.
yep.
So if you can remember that, you can always at least show the judge, this is what we are looking at.
yeah, it won't even get to that point, it's just gotta show it to the lawyers at this point, it's not an option, we can't go down that road, so. I mean,
As we
this,
understand it.
cause if I didn't come here tonight, I would've had that, and then we would've just been another month behind where we could be eliminating it, so.
Mhm.
But, so if there's anything else, I'll be in touch, but that answers that, so.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for your time.
Yep.
See you. So that was that one. Then the next thing was the Warren construction meetings, but I think, have we decided?
I think you did, didn't you? I'll notify Warren and tell him you don't wanna revisit that L1 application.
Is that what he's asking?
Yeah. Yeah, it says, please advise if the revised plan will require a visit to the planning board. Okay, I'll call him.
I don't think so.
I will call him.
Okay.
So for the record, thank you very much, Gary. So that quick summary is that, Roger, you missed, we had an informal discussion before, but this note from Peter Warren. So remember how we've approved that application in interior and not structural changes.
Yeah, so, I mean, if they came in with that originally, they wouldn't even need a permit from us, right, just for the,
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably, yep.
This is.
so, what, all I was gonna say is, so, but right now, on the town records, we've issued them a permit to do X, Y, and Z at the last meeting,
And they're not gonna do
and they're
it.
not gonna do that.
So the
Is
taxes,
this adequate documentation?
I think so, cause the tax assessor will pick up on this.
Okay, and I'm just thinking of the planning board's, records as well, in terms of, this really needs to be attached to that whole
Yeah, that won't hurt.
permit, so that it's clear.
Yep, yep.
What I'm not clear about is the memo from Peter Warren says, please be advised the attached plan reflects a simplified renovation.
Right, and I don't
There
have,
should have been an attached plan.
you didn't see it, did you?
No.
I don't think I did either.
I'm not seeing it.
It's confusing,
It is.
and it'll be even more confusing in the future.
I think it would be important to do what you said, George, and that's to attach this to the original.
Right.
Really
Right.
highlighting the reduction in.
But even so, you know, just what Rich brought up, if there's, this says, you know, see attached plan, in 18 months from now, we look for the attached plan.
My thinking is that there must have been, at least we thought it was signed in attached plan, but we may not want to even deal with this till we ask them, or if Gary finds a plan. We've got something here that says attached plan, and
Stand by, we have a plan.
I don't know if this is, I think that's me. That's okay. Well,
So this is an original, this is something
Yeah,
you've seen.
that's, yeah, I believe that came.
yeah, we have 75, that's the way it is.
So I'm just opening up this now.
Found it?
This, Nick found it.
There's bedroom number 5, is it bedroom number 6 and 7?
1, 2, 3, 4 was over it. And 5 was underneath, which was grandpa's room. And there used to be 6, 7 in the middle, which they've eliminated, now this middle's open.
So there's a date on this?
There's one, we don't show the second staircase.
This is 11, what's that, one of the,
Oh, yeah, level 1, that's where, that's the,
okay,
okay, this is it.
so that's
So
it,
that is
so,
it.
so that should be,
Okay. So from the
Okay,
town's,
so this is, what's the first floor? That's the kitchen, this is first floor.
first floor, right?
So it's bedroom 1, which was grandpa's room, I would say. 2 and 3, and then upstairs, they've only gone to 2 bedrooms instead of 4. That's where they eliminated 2 bedrooms here.
Yep. So for a total of 5.
And I remember there was what, a corner that was 3 feet in within 100 feet of wall or something?
Yeah.
But they're not moving it.
No,
So,
no, that was one of the deals, you know, did we have to move it, or did it stay there, or?
so it sounds like they're pretty much redesigning the inside.
That's it.
And eliminating 2 bedrooms.
Yep.
Yep, exactly, Roger.
it's just a matter of
Make a nice
documenting
bedroom
it,
bigger,
that we issue the permit that they don't need.
like over here, there's a bedroom here now, that's just bedroom 4, bigger closet.
So I'm good. I mean, I think,
I'll call him.
and we have, from the town's perspective, we have the attached plan. This will be part of,
Right.
yeah, the record.
So the only thing that changes is the inside footprint stays the same, and
Yep, exactly.
square footage stays the same.
So this
This
addresses,
is attached to the letter.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have been just laying out there and
thank you.
freeze.
Thank you. So I would say that from our general discussion, that no action is needed. Gary's going to do a follow-up call. For the minutes, we are making sure that the town has the new attached plan as part of the record. Are we all okay with that? Okay. old business, finalize the CDRO. Mr. Lessard has some comments on the sign portion of the word.
Right, well, couple of things. I know a little bit about sign ordinances. At one time, I was on a zoning board, so I attended a couple of, training seminars over at, what is that outfit there next to Civic Center?
Oh,
Does Belgrade belong to that?
Oh, Maine Municipal
Maine Municipal.
Association?
Maine Municipal?
Yeah, we do.
I probably had experience with practically every sign ordinance in Maine. I own a sign company. And so my first comment is questioning the legality of placing a sign ordinance that does not have any paperwork associated with it. An ordinance is in fact a police action. It's a way of the municipality to control development by adding performance standards and so forth. And just hearing the discussion you had tonight, you're supposed to have plans, you're supposed to have, an application filled out and so on and so forth, so that everybody has an equal playing field when you make a submission. So that's the technical part of the ordinance. I have a question as to its legality, because it really doesn't offer any guidelines, other than saying that you're only allowed 2 signs with a grand total sign area of 32 square feet. On that side of the thing, 32 square feet will ensure the fact that you have no new development in Belgrade, because it is nowhere near what you need. All you have to do is take a look at Christie's and Hammond Lumber and Gagny's and whatnot. If you look at larger developments, at one time 3 or 4 years ago, there was somebody looking at possibly putting a supermarket with a combined drugstore and whatnot in the area. They would have required signage. 32 square feet is just not going to do it. If another convenience store come into town, 32 square feet is not going to do it. In fact, there is no mention of what happens to existing properties that have signs that are in excess of the 32 square feet. Generally, you'll look at it as non-conforming. You don't mention what happens to non-conforming signs. Either they go away or they remain in place or whatever. So the whole aspect of the way that the ordinance is written leaves a lot of questions. If you're a member of Maine Municipal, you should have Maine Municipal look at it. As a police action, you really need a lot of detail for the town's people to vote on it so that they know what the heck they're voting on. So there's a lot of problems that way. But as a property owner in town, the way that the ordinance is written will discourage any new business development, which means my taxes will never go down because you're never gonna have any new businesses building in town. And then there are questions in the way that it's written. For instance, it talks about illuminated externally only in item 1 under illuminated signs. And then in the very next paragraph, it talks about the village area allowing internal illuminated signs. And then there's the fact that the electronic signs are internally illuminated. So it does not get into the correct detailing of description. If you end up having to go to court, you're gonna lose. So it's not really well written in that respect. It's not written well from a planning perspective. So the implementation, this is gonna get thrown out. For instance, the town sign is 64 square feet. I know, I designed it. So, as a grandfathered sign, you really need to make a statement here. Otherwise than that, half that sign's gotta go away.
We do have provisions, may not be in the sign standards, but there are provisions for non-conforming
Well, when you're dealing with signs, you really gotta be specific, because, you know, you're gonna
Yeah,
get screwed
I think we
over.
need to go back one step. There's an important piece of this that you're not understanding, and that is that this is not about grandfathered signage or grandfathered development in town. This only starts with 2001 when this
Yeah,
this
but
ordinance
that
was
doesn't
enacted.
matter. Legally, you really have to make a complete
No, you
statement.
don't. No, you don't.
You don't?
We've, then you develop a sign ordinance, like you said, which
Exactly.
other communities have if you wanted to regulate all signs. We're not trying to regulate all signs. We're not, the sign is only one small piece of what
Well,
this ordinance is intended to
You're
regulate.
gonna
That
get
is new
sued.
development.
You're gonna get sued for this. That's really my point. It's really a poorly written document, and the two things are gonna happen. You're gonna discourage business development. It's conflicting in item 1 versus item 2, external lighting, internal lighting. It's just a hodgepodge, it's a mess. The
But
town
just
is
so
gonna
you know
suffer.
that, we relied heavily on technical support from Kennebec County, Kennebec Valley Council of Governments and their
Well,
land use
then they
plans.
don't know what they're doing either.
I see.
You know, it's really gonna cause a problem to the town. In fact, if you got a business, like, there was a business that didn't meet the, square footage performance standards, whatever, for next door, they would have wanted a sign. 32 square feet's not gonna do it. You know, it's just, there's no understanding of what the topic of discussion is. So if you don't have a sign ordinance, get rid of this thing. It's really gonna be a pain for the town to deal with, and if some lawyer comes in, if Hannaford or Shaw's or whatever, you name it, some supermarket wants to come in, 32 square feet is the first thing they're gonna attack. And this is gonna get thrown out. You're gonna end up going to court and paying some penalties, so it's really a mess. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't even talk about, you know, how do you enforce it? Doesn't require submission of a plan, doesn't have an application, doesn't have a fee, doesn't have, you know, there's no performance standards other than 32 square feet. So, you know, you may have something in mind, you know, and the statement of it, you know, the purpose of it is to regulate, it's just a bunch of baloney. It really cannot be implemented. You know, Gary knows, I mean, Augusta's got they don't even call signs a sign anymore, but, you know, that goes
Yeah,
into
we-
another area.
We have a specific sign ordinance, but, you know.
But if you
that-
wanna
that's
talk
not a
about
sign ordinance.
signs, and you wanna look at it from a business perspective, and trying to generate tax revenue for businesses that come into town, anybody that relies on a sign is gonna look at this and say, oh, we got a problem, we can go someplace else. That's what's gonna happen.
One of the other things, just the way of background that's important for you to understand is, one of the reasons we're redoing, upgrading this ordinance, and it's an existing ordinance, it's been in place, as I said before, since 2001, is to incorporate the recommendations of the 2014 comprehensive plan. I don't know if you've ever looked at that, but, which the voters of town approved. And one of the findings in that, and it's actually in the economic development section, is that we come up with more stringent standards that include a number of things, but it's all based on minimizing the impact on neighbors. And signage and lighting are two of them.
Then write an ordinance. That would be my
That-
suggestion.
This is that ordinance, this is the ordinance.
Well, I will
Development.
speak loudly at the town meeting against this and state every reason why it's gonna be a bad deal for the town to do this, especially in the fact that if you're allowing internally lighted signs in the village, that is, in my mind, the most insane thing, because it's written that way. You don't want internally lighted signs in the village. The village, if you're gonna attract tourists, they don't care that Days has a sign that says you can buy gas. They wanna go into a New England fishing village between two ponds. That's where you should have non-lighted signs to create an atmosphere. The rest of the town on Route 11, Route 8, Route 27, the main corridors, state roads, you know, if you want to encourage business development, you have to understand speed limits and whatnot. 32 square feet on a 55-mile-an-hour road is dangerous. You can't put out enough information. You know, there's a lot of things that If the Kennebec County Council of Governments suggested this, they don't know what they're talking about. It's really simple. You know, and it's not as if I'm just pulling this out of thin air. I've actually written sign ordinances. I wrote a sign ordinance for Bar Harbor because they wanted to allow lighted signs. Bar Harbor was the first community in the country to pass a law called dark skies. They wanted non-lighted signs. Well, they didn't understand the implications of having floodlights all over the place. There's a lot of businesses in Bar Harbor. And when you light a patch on the ground, 10, 12 feet around, in order to light a 4x8 sign, in the wintertime in Maine, you're gonna bounce. So you got a lot of externally lit signs that creates much more light pollution than an internally lighted sign that has a background that's opaque. Again, it's a minor little detail. Somebody had some goal in mind, they thought they were smart, they didn't know what they were talking about. You know, I rewrote the ordinance for them in order to do two things: diminish the amount of light and improve the visibility for the businesses. Now, square footage in a compact area, 32 square feet in the village is fine. On the highways, 32 square feet is not fine. You know, you're gonna end up with one person after another at town meeting, whether it's Christie's or Hammond or anybody that's got signs out there, they're gonna have a problem with this. Your reference to the state statute on the operation of changeable letter signs, electronic signs, you're only allowed to change it every 20 minutes. Find yourself, that sign changes too often by state statute. Does it change often enough at 20 minutes? No. The city, the town, municipality has the right, if they're willing to enforce it themselves, to lower that standard. In Augusta, it's every 4 seconds.
We discussed this here in Belgrade, and they didn't want to do that.
Well,
We don't, but most of the businesses in this town.
Didn't want to either.
what's that?
They didn't want that changed
Yeah,
to 4
in fact,
seconds.
if we.
Well, it doesn't have to be
This is a
4
compromise.
seconds.
This is a compromise. There are many in town who do not want a single changeable sign in this town. So
Well, I
this is a
understand that,
compromise.
but you have to have a public hearing on this portion of the document. It needs to be fleshed out. It has a tremendous impact on the town as a sign ordinance. You know, Gary will tell you, it's a much bigger pain in the butt for him to deal with sign ordinances than anything else. Because everybody's got this tremendous opinion, whether you hate signs, like signs, you own a business, you know, there's a tremendous amount of input and opinion associated with signs. And so you really have to do it right. This was not done right. You know, when you go to the town meeting, like I said, I'm gonna testify against it because it's poorly written. And I'm sure every business in town is gonna testify against it too, because, you know, there are obvious reasons, you know, I mean, you don't address with existing conditions in the sign ordinance. You know, you can't make a blind reference to some other place in a land use provision, you know, because you're not talking about a sign. I'll tell you why. Signs are protected by the First Amendment. They're commercial speech. They're just not an object that you can say, oh, you have a setback, you have a size, you have a this or that. You know, there will be businesses that will say, now wait a minute, you're taking away my ability to communicate. That's an issue. You know, it gets fought that way, you know, and it just really has not been done correctly.
Raise that, but I can't imagine the court of law holding up the fact that we regulate the size of the sign as regular, as being an unconstitutional activity.
Well, I can bring you court cases. You know, the issue is the proper ability to communicate at certain rates of speed and whatnot. This ordinance is perfect for the village. It's not right for here. You don't have time to get information. You would get somebody's name perhaps, but in 32 square feet, that's probably all you can put. somebody's name. It doesn't help a business if they've got an obscure name. It doesn't help a business if they're trying to push a particular product. And, you know, it's a question of sight distance, it's all these things. You know, like I said, it's either that or Belgrade is just not gonna develop. You're not gonna have businesses.
The process that we've been through so far is we've been to the select board, they've signed off on this. We've had a public information meeting the end of October. Would have been helpful if you'd attended that instead of come tonight, but, because that was the time to bring comments like this forward. We're on the verge of sending it to public hearing. There'll be 2 public hearings. One's held by this board, one held by the select board.
And then you have to,
For any ordinance adoption.
and then you have a
And then it
warrant
goes
to the town meeting. That's right. So, you know, the discussion for, the purpose of signs. What is the purpose of a sign? And how does it translate into communication with a viewer of that sign? You know, you have
See,
to,
if you'd been here at the public information meeting, there would have been somebody sitting next to you that argued vehemently that we should not allow any internally lit signs in the entire.
hey, some people don't want any signs at all. How's that?
So,
Right,
just so you know, you're not the only opinion on this.
it's one.
It isn't a question of whether you have signs or not. The bigger question is, in a commercial development ordinance, the idea is commercial development, so how do signs impact commercial development? You know, I mean, granted, if you drive by Hammond Lumber, they got way too many signs. They could have fewer signs. You don't deal with that. You don't deal with,
We can't,
a big pardon?
we can't. This ordinance doesn't apply to Hammond Lumber, they're grandfathered.
Oh, well, but you don't say it in the sign portion. Somebody's
No,
gonna,
it's in the basic content of the ordinance in terms of applicability. So you have to read that first and then worry about what else is in the ordinance. If it doesn't apply, it doesn't apply.
but it's
Simple as that. It's just like if you're not in the shoreline zone,
too.
it doesn't apply.
Too restrictive. Shoreline zone, you can have 6 square feet of sign.
Well, I'm not
Apply
talking
in
about the
state law.
signs, I'm talking in the broader context.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are applications throughout the entire town when you're dealing with signs. You know, you can't just pigeonhole it to this one particular area. And I understand that people have opinions for and against. 25 years, I went to every legislative session, I wrote laws. You know, some were enacted by the legislature to change laws that were at the state level. I've probably dealt with every municipality. You know, so this is not a light, I mean, this is, the treatment of this is nowhere near what needs to be. If you end up with 32 square feet, fine. Put a means of implementation. Talk about, you know, submission of drawings, talk about site plans, talk about this and that. You have a combined area of 32 square feet. If you're in the village and you put a sign on the building, because somebody looks over and sees that, you put a freestanding sign, 2 signs, that's all you're allowed, 16 square feet each, okay, that works, because you're gonna go 25 miles an hour or you're a pedestrian. That's fine. You're out here, it's not enough. So what I'm saying is the implication to me as a taxpayer is I'm never gonna have my taxes go down because businesses are just gonna walk away. They're gonna go to Sydney. They're gonna go someplace else. They're not gonna look at Belgrade. And the ordinance, the way it's written, allows lighted signs in the village. That's horrible, as far as I'm concerned. You have non-lighted signs in the village. Matter of fact, you should end the grandfather of any lighted signs that are there now, because I think it interferes with the character of the village. So, you know, I will raise all these points at the town meeting. You know, it's really an issue that, I'm sorry I didn't come to that meeting, but I will be a pain in the ass from now on. You know, I just happened to come into town the other day, and I says, oh, look at this. Is this what they've been talking about? And I says, do I have an opportunity to talk about it? Well, it's a planning board meeting, you know. Hey, great, you know. How many people like me just didn't read the notices? It happens all the time.
It does happen all the time.
But they will
You know,
be
we've
in
been
a
working
public
for-
meeting.
A year and a half on this.
No, I don't,
This is not the only time to have talked about this.
I understand.
There's been input for years on the comprehensive plan before we even got to do the revisions to this. We then relied on other input, like George mentioned, to help us get through the revisions just to get to the state.
Yeah.
Now we're at a point where we've got to go through the mechanics of getting it ready for vote in March.
Crunch time, it's really crunch
It's
time.
really crunch time.
I
So it's
understand.
really, to
When I
me-
moved to town, I offered to write a sign ordinance for the town. The planning board didn't want to deal with it. You know, I'm retired. I don't really like this topic, but I'm good. You know, this is gonna cause problems for the town. You pass this ordinance, it's gonna cause problems for the town. That's really what's gonna happen. You have no enforcement, really, no application, submission, this and that, no controls. No, you know, it's not specific enough, and it's written in reverse, I think, of what you intended, especially in dealing with village. So, whether that's a typo or not, that definitely needs to be corrected. And the idea of external lighting, there are many arguments against it, you know, and, like I said, I rewrote the ordinance for Bar Harbor because, you know, they had a problem with it. You know, it was taking over, too much light. External lighting, too much light. You know, so it's just, you know, everybody can have an opinion, but my opinion, I'll have 10 examples for everyone. So, it's just one of those things. The ordinance is definitely about control. That's usually how things get passed or written. I understand how that works. You know, I've been through it many times. Like Augusta, you know, they don't call signs anymore. It's ambiguous. They don't want people to know. But like I said, as a taxpayer, this is gonna have a negative impact on tax revenue. I mean, I pay enough taxes as is, I'm on the waterfront. But, as far as, submission of plans and this and that, like I said, 35 years I've drawn up plans and know what variances are and, you know, very well aware of setbacks and rights of way and all this and that. And in the case of signs, you know, you need some controls, yes, you need controls, but those controls have to be put together in such a way that they don't hinder development. And this is what's gonna happen here. That will be the big thing. So,
So it sounds like you're advocating basically eliminate this section of the ordinance, write a
write a
sign
sign
ordinance
ordinance, yeah.
that would provide, in doing so, would provide less obstacles in passing this as it is.
And more controls, you know, because this is vague and whatnot, and like I said, the areas that are a problem, I'm not sure that, well, I think from a business perspective, if a supermarket will want to come in here, and, you know, they did all their studies about how much money they can make and whatnot, they're gonna go for a variance, they're gonna go to the zoning board and try to get a variance.
Which they can do.
But variances are based on hardship. You've created a hardship, you know, unnecessarily. And so,
Yeah,
it's just,
and while I appreciate what you're saying, one thing you probably don't know is that the select persons have made it very clear they don't want a whole bunch of new ordinances. They've said it time and time
yeah,
again.
no, I understand.
So we hear that as part of the mix as well. So a recommendation to include yet another ordinance will go over like a ton of bricks.
Well, especially with the people that you're relying on writing this type of stuff.
I'm not talking about that, I'm
No,
talking about buying from the town leaders.
Yeah, I understand, but the, if you want to, from a planning, a municipal planning point of view, and you look at Belgrade in proximity to Augusta, you know, people are seeing Belgrade, you know, if you look in the future, people are seeing Belgrade as its location close to the highway, obviously the lakes, recreation, all this and that, but a new hospital, that makes land value go up, because it's right next to here, you know, and as you get more people, you know, professionals, say, that work in the hospital or associated with businesses like that, they don't wanna necessarily have to drive back into Augusta for services. At least the business community will say, oh, look, you know, we have opportunities here. They're gonna come here and they go, oh gee, you know, it's a real pain in the butt, you know, why do we wanna do that? We'll just build in Augusta. You know, it's only 6 miles away. Or we'll go to, Sydney, you know.
Do you think they would do that because you can only put a 4x8 sign?
Didn't seem to
Yes.
bother Dollar General. They went for 4 or 5 variances and not one of them was a sign. They had no issue with our sign ordinance.
Well, in their case, I guess if you drive by the store they have up in Oakland, all it says is Dollar General, they don't really say anything. So,
So that size works then?
well, it works
For
for
that
some,
development.
for some businesses.
Well, there you go.
You know, if you don't have to tell anybody what you have. In the case of, let's say another convenience store wants to open in town, they're gonna sell gas, right? All of a sudden, you know, they got this tiny little sign, you know? If Big Apple, which is, you know, a Maine-based company, decides that they wanna put a station up here, they might not. You know, it's just one of those things that, it will impede the process because, you know, it just wasn't addressed properly. I mean, like I said, 32 square feet, a sheet of plywood, how do you end up with a number like that? I mean, it's great for the village, perfect. 2 signs, 32 square feet, that'll work. Out here, there has to be some consideration about speed of traffic, viewing distance, you know, that's the type of thing. I mean, you, just listening to that Dollar General meeting, I mean, the size of a lot, 180 feet, you know, you're using a 90-foot radius. All right, well, that's a pretty good sized lot, you know, you've got distances between lots. You know, at some point, there's gonna be some development up here. But this is going to, unless somebody can get a variance, and it's hard to show hardship for a sign. I mean, it really is. It's almost impossible, as a matter of fact. When I was on the zoning board, I could never understand why somebody wanted to apply for variance for a sign. Because you couldn't prove the hardship. You know, it's one of those things, but,
Have you taken up your concerns with this town selectmen at all?
no, I just came in this week to see this.
It might be really good for you to do that.
Well, they have a public meeting, a public hearing, aren't they?
I don't know if that's the first or the second, but.
Yeah, I think it would be really good for them to understand your concerns. You know, because to me, it's, I hear them, they're valid, and, if it's a game changer, they deserve to know how it could be a game changer.
Well, you know, I think that because of the rural character of the town and whatnot, certainly that can be taken into consideration. The other part is that you start moving a little bit further down the road to a complete zoning ordinance. Because some of the land use, I mean, a lot of it is restricted because of waterfront and whatnot, but the village certainly is really the plum, you know, I don't, you know, other than getting rid of lighted signs, I think that's pretty much perfect, although the new road development probably gonna change the character of that, can't do much about that. But I think that's what people come for, they come to Belgrade to go there. you know, on the way, they drive through here. They go to Farmington, they go to Sugarloaf, they drive through here. It has regional appeal, not just for people that commute back and forth to work, to Augusta or Waterville or wherever. But as vacationers that go skiing, for instance, or, you know, I mean, the golf course, that's a big draw. You know, people might play golf in Rockland one day, come here, you know, they're gonna drive up and down these roads. So it's almost a natural to think in the way of a business to say, oh gee, you know, it requires more services and people drive by here. I noticed that in Augusta, for instance, that convenience store on 27, just as you get to Augusta, just widen the road with a turning lane and whatnot. That happened because it's right near the new bridge, you know, or, you know, the way to go to the hospital. I think that at some point in my mind, I would see Route 27 shifting over there also. Instead of driving through Augusta and Hollowell, they'll go across the river just to move some of that traffic away from where it's congested with the marketplace and all of that. But, you know, travelers come by here. Businesses are eventually, you know, like the old town office is for sale. I don't know who's looking for that, but what could go there? I think it has setback problems and parking problems. But a bank, an ATM, drive-through ATM, or a drive-through Dunkin' Donuts, I don't know, that doesn't require parking and could use that building footprint, could probably go there. But they're certainly gonna want a sign. 32 square feet, you know, it might work there because the lot's so small. But, you know, other places where you require this 180 feet, you're allowing a lot of space between developments. And there's still a lot of space here where there's not gonna be development for a while. You know, it's publicly owned land, you know, behind the school and whatnot. But somebody's gonna sell, you know, like this guy who was just here, you know, when his solution is to sell to those people that give him a hard time, you know, that'll make everything conform. But somebody's gonna look, like that supermarket. I don't know why the guy didn't follow through, but that's a great place for development right there. And it will happen. And it's just a question of preparing for it. If you're gonna go to the trouble of writing it, you know, this is not doing any service to anybody. It's just,
Well, speaking for myself, I can tell you quite plainly that we are trying to do a service to the entire town.
yeah,
That's why we went through the great effort of having KB Cog help us go through the revisions to this, to get it to the state.
Well, and furthermore, to implement the comprehensive plan, which the voters of this town approved.
That's what they voted for, which encourages development along 27,
right.
In part.
in part, yeah.
Well, if you
In part.
wanna, you know, designate certain areas, you know, it's
But
basically a
this ordinance
zoning.
doesn't do that, that's zoning. This is not zoning.
That's correct, that's correct,
And we aren't a zoning board, we don't have zoning ordinances.
right,
So
I understand.
development.
Yeah, exactly, for shoreline.
I mean, shoreland is governed by state regulations, and the town decides whether or not you can expand on the footprint. That's about the only regulation you have any authority over. If you do implement a sign ordinance, the municipalities have the right to lower the rate of change. I don't even think you need to make a statement here to follow the state regulations, because it's automatic. No enforcement means the state enforces it, which basically says the state doesn't enforce it, because everybody violates.
Steve's Appliance,
What's that?
like Steve's Appliance.
No, Steve's Appliance is legal, because they went to a town meeting, and they had the ordinance changed. They had an ordinance
Yeah, but
implemented.
He's still in violation constantly. It scrolls, it does
Oh,
all
I know,
kinds of
I know,
funky,
I know.
yeah.
Actually, you know, I
Well,
saw,
I mean, that's a great example, though, that's what people in this town don't want.
They don't want that.
They do not want that kind of sign, because they find it obnoxious and intrusive.
And they don't wanna change it, cause they don't want us to enforce it. If the state,
well, that's what
willing to
happens.
do
If the town writes its own ordinance, then it's a local enforcement.
right, and they've made it clear they don't want that.
The town doesn't want to enforce
That's
it.
correct.
So you don't even have to mention the state, because they automatically are
enforce
are the governing power. It's like anything else. It's like shoreline zoning, state law. You have to follow that. But in the case of, I don't know what the implication is, once you make this statement like you have here, to follow the state law. I mean, obviously it ties you to them, but you don't even have to say it. I mean, you're already tied to it.
Well, except that one of the goals, and again, this goes back to the comprehensive plan, one of the problems we heard from people when we were developing that plan, not we as, but many of us served on various committees that worked on the comprehensive plan, was that this, and along with some of the other ordinances, didn't have enough guidance for applicants, including developers, and so the idea there was to provide them with adequate guidance so that they know what the rules of the road are. I mean, as you probably know, what a business wants when a new business developer is coming in, they want to know what the rules of the road are.
Yeah, absolutely.
They like to have a good sense of what the outcome's going to be before they get the outcome. And you know, talk to the Maine Development Foundation. I mean, you'll hear that from them all the time. And that's what this ordinance does a better job of than the current ordinance does.
Well, that's certainly true when it comes to restrictions. You have to be clear about restrictions. In the area of signs, you have the umbrella, which is the state. So if the local community is silent, then it says to anybody who's looking at it, okay, enforcement is at the state level. And so in your case, if you're going to limit lighting and square footage, probably it's all you need to mention. And where, then it becomes a question in my mind, is because you don't have zoning, are you allowed to designate where? If a business can, is a business restricted to the areas indicated in this document, then it's really only a business that's gonna have a sign, unless you have a situation where it's a home occupation, so that's not addressed. You know, so again, you get all these little nitty-gritty things, you know, that, you know, if somebody sells sweaters at their home, they're gonna put a sign outside. How do you deal with that? You know, it's a residential use, but a home occupation. You know, you gotta address all these things, because as you said, people want answers. Well, you have to know what the questions are.
Well, and this doesn't pretend to be any kind of comprehensive land use ordinance.
Yeah,
That's not what this is, and you're right, you get consequently, because Belgrade doesn't have anything like that, you know, let's use the Z word, zoning, because Belgrade doesn't have comprehensive land use zoning. There's no overarching regulation of all the different things you've just described, so Belgrade got bits and pieces, it's got shoreline zoning, it's got minimum lot size,
yeah.
it's got this, it's, you know.
Yeah, well, you have
it's
state
got
building
mass gathering,
codes, you
but
have
it
all,
doesn't have anything
yeah.
that's comprehensive and overarching, so
Right.
you do have these, not only loopholes, but areas of potential conflict.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
and like
you
I
know,
said-
if people are really concerned about that, then there's a solution. It's just that people in this town generally don't like that solution.
Well, that's a fact. Everybody's gonna have some area to complain about. You know, when, in Augusta, for instance, you know, they passed their ordinance, went through the planner's office, this and that, you know. Basically, they wrote their own ordinance. The only thing that got changed from what their suggestion was the rate of change. Because there was enough businesses that wanted to, the previous ordinance had 4 seconds, so they didn't alter that. As far as the enforcement of it, because there's an ordinance and it deals with the electronic signs in a specific way. In this case, you know, you've made reference to the state, so you've given the authority to the state, which they already have anyways. But if you wanted to lower the rate of change, you would accept the enforcement, which if that's a problem, then you don't even have to mention it. You know, it's already in place. That's the state law. In the case of planning, I don't know. I mean, at some point, there's gonna have to be something. I mean, otherwise than that, you know, there'll be more and more questions. You know, Belgrade's an appealing place, but as property lakefront property changes from camps, you know, to year-round residences, to other things, more services will be required. You know, it is a highway through town between other places that people go. It will be appealing to other kinds of businesses that could survive year-round. All you gotta do is just, you know, go to Oxford and South Paris and see all these same places that are not necessarily destination. Of course, Oxford has a casino, but people driving to the ski area or to the lakes drive through that area. Well, all of a sudden you get a little shopping center that shows up and it's got a Dunkin' Donuts and it's got a this and a that. You know, not a big footprint, not anything you see in the city, but, you know,
I mean,
those are the
We went to
times.
the select board, and their views are not unlike that of most of the citizens in this town, or at least the ones that participated in the development of the comprehensive plan or came to the various public venues, is that they're very concerned about the commercial sprawl coming up Route 27 from Augusta.
Yep.
And what that's gonna look like, and how to mitigate the impact of that on the community as well as on neighbors, because we have mixed, you know, we're gonna have a mix of residential and commercial. It isn't gonna be just one or the other. And so, this ordinance tries to find that sweet spot in doing that, and I'm not just talking about signs either, there's, you know, all kinds of aspects to this, including, you know, buffers, vegetative buffers, et cetera. All the things you do to mitigate the impact of commercial development on everything else.
I would say, I don't think that the majority of people in town will wanna have Route 27 in Belgrade look like Oxford.
Yeah, right, or
Right.
And make it
Wyndham, or
perfectly clear.
Chelsea, or KMD, or,
I cannot quote the results of the surveys that went out early on about this type of a thing, but it spoke to those types of things, and the public made it perfectly clear they did not want to be like Augusta sprawl.
and that includes a lot of glittering, you know, signs that are not much different than the old flashing fluorescent signs on Route 4 in New Jersey, you know, from all the other dealerships, so.
Well,
People don't want that, not here. It might be fine for Augusta and Charlie's, but it isn't, you know, that's not why people come to Belgrade.
no, I understand that, but in dealing with why people come to Belgrade, there's a failure in this ordinance to address that, because it improperly identifies where lighted signs are allowed. There's an error in the way that it's written.
I'm wondering if what you can do going forward is to bring your concerns to the select persons, to see if they would then consider having a sign ordinance be developed. Because quite frankly, I'll state this again, right? We've worked for years to get to this point. Signs is, this article or this section is just one part of it.
No, I understand.
Right? And we've tried to balance all kinds of concerns that were expressed publicly and privately, sometimes with great emotion, to find the right balance of a document that can go before the voters. And only now are we hearing about how you would wish to have this changed. So hearing that, it doesn't mean that this is a dead document, right? It means that at this point in time, if this were passed tomorrow, you would be against it, obviously.
I would be
But it
against,
doesn't mean that it couldn't be amended going forward. Strip out section 12, develop its own sign ordinance to go for the town, and then have something else that could better meet your needs as well as the rest of the town.
well, I don't have any particular needs other than from the standpoint of how it impacts my taxes
Right.
in this particular case.
And I hear what you're saying.
But I'm just pointing out the failure of the ordinance to not address certain issues, and the obvious failure in referencing illuminated versus non-illuminated and so forth. Whether it was written incorrectly, as a typo or whatever, that needs to be corrected. But the one area that is going to be something either of complaint and still hasn't been addressed, is the issue of non-conforming signs, because other businesses will refer to this document because you have a section called signs, and it fails to address non-conforming signs as an entity. And they'll say, the Sunset Grill's got a neon sign, I want a neon sign too, you know? That,
You're pointing back to the non-conformance section.
no, I
of
understand.
the ordinance.
But in your ordinance, you can have a lighted sign in the village. You know, item number 2, internally lit signs are permitted only within the village area. Well, I don't think that's what you want. You know, it's certainly not what you want as an end result, you know, you don't want lighted signs on there, I'd
Well,
prefer not to
and
have.
part of that is because, much of the Route 27 quarters
village.
is, designated as village.
Village.
Yeah. But I
It's
think,
growth area, because the state required us to have a certain amount of designated area for growth in the comprehensive plan. In fact, rejected the comprehensive plan because Belgrade didn't have enough designated for commercial growth. We had to send Katie Cog back to the drawing board and redo the GIS mapping, and so we had come up with additional village area, and that, and including an expansion of Belgrade Lakes Village and this area along this triangular piece, which you
this is all
talked
considered the
about.
village, see, I wouldn't ever have attributed this area to the village. The village in my
Well-
mind is that.
Well,
It's
village
called village
is,
areas.
as a land use, not as Belgrade Lakes Village.
Yeah,
So not the common
And
place
likewise in
name.
North Belgrade, expanding commercial area for commercial development over there.
North Belgrade, yeah, that's right, that's another place that has an electronic sign, a gas, you know, convenience store, whatnot, you know, further out towards, whatever the
Smith-
Oakland,
It's in Smithfield.
That's in Smithfield.
yeah, oh, it is in
Yeah,
Smithfield?
Technically it is,
Sweet Dreams.
Is that what it is?
yeah.
It's on there. But again, you know, you have these areas that are serviced by certain types of businesses, and they have inherently within them certain types of needs. And you just have to look at it, whether it's a sprawl, the convenience store that, ended up with a turning lane, what is that, Damon's?
Yeah.
That was there previously, it was called something else. They don't have any more signs than they had before, but they have a much bigger gas pump canopy, a lot more lighting. You know, I mean, it's a much different place than it was 10 years ago. But they have the same 2 lighted signs, I guess, that's all they have. So they haven't changed anything, but they have certainly increased the development footprint or visual, let's put it that way. And, yeah, you know, and you do address lighting here, external lighting on buildings and so forth. But again, I think that the village, if you were allowing internally lighted signs in the village, I think you may wanna not allow it in Belgrade Lakes Village. I think that will do harm to the visual impact of that area of town.
You know, one of the things we were advised is that's when we would get into legal problems, when we make those kind of arbitrary distinctions. If you're gonna do it for village, the village area as designated in the comprehensive plan, you gotta do it for all, you can't just cherry pick.
So then you would need a zoning ordinance in order to designate levels of development and
Yeah.
so forth. Different types, different uses, permitted uses.
Correct.
Right, and then you would have greater detail for, you know, how each of those would be developed.
Which is exactly what we're told to know.
Well, one of the things that you might consider in the village area, the Belgrade Lakes Village area, maybe designated a historic area, non-lighted. Even though it's a village commercial development area. If you designate another blanket statement to say from here to there, you know, from the stream to wherever the intersection of the West Road, is considered historic Belgrade, which it is really. And that might allow you to implement a few different rules, more restrictions, just from a visual standpoint. Augusta's going through that now, right? historic,
Hmm.
I mean, it
Historic
is
district.
unfortunate that you didn't, weren't able to participate earlier in the process, including in the comprehensive plan. I don't mean to cut this off, because some of your ideas are good ones. There are others I don't agree with at all, but, we still have to go through the ordinance and pick up, things that, need to be changed,
Yeah.
where the edits, the last round of edits
It's right.
didn't quite get right, so.
So when are the public hearings going to happen? No idea.
You don't know, yeah, I mean, obviously, it can, see, I think it's no later than the middle of January in terms of getting it on.
You have a
the
cutoff for warrants.
Right.
ballot. Right, yeah, just like any of the other warrant
Right.
articles, I think that's the selectmen's public hearing.
Yeah.
We need to get, one of the things we have yet to talk about is we need to get advice from the town manager.
So this board will have another public hearing on
That's
this
our
document,
understanding.
and then
We're not
the council.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
relying on it, but I just know that, prior assistant town clerk and I guess now the town manager.
Right, to guide us through it, but, so I'm thinking probably roughly in December would have something, and then in January,
No later than the end of January.
Another one.
To finalize the document that becomes the warrant.
Actually, no, once it's posted to
Oh,
public
yeah.
hearing, there's no changes after that.
Right,
It's just to inform people so they can make a up and down vote.
right.
That's
So,
what the public informational meeting was for last month.
I see, okay. All right, so in the aspect of my input at this moment, that document, that final document has yet to be written.
We're gonna finalize it tonight.
It's our goal.
We have to, we're running out of time.
That's why Gary was saying it was crunch time, because it is.
Yeah.
Like we were saying before, we've been at this for a long time. A long time. It's taken a lot of money and volunteer hours to get to this point.
All right, well, all right, so, based on this last topic about the village lighted sign area, under the current setup, there's nothing preventing internally lighted sign in Belgrade Lakes Village. And there's nothing preventing electronic signs in Belgrade Lakes Village, because that's a lighted sign.
Right.
So, you might wanna consider tweaking, I don't know, whether it's adding a historic district or doing something, because that, somebody is gonna come into town and decide, oh, I can do this. You know, even within your restrictions, which I think are much too restrictive for size, in the way of grandfather, it'll never go away, from what you just said.
One of the entities that we, myself and one of the other board members who's not here tonight, we brought this, at its infancy to the Belgrade Lakes Regional Business Group and went over it with them. And at least they didn't bring it up as a concern. Whether they focused on it or not, I couldn't tell you.
Well, you know, I mean, businesses turn over not too infrequently in the village there. Somebody's gonna move in and decide, oh, I can do this.
First gonna have to find parking.
Parking, it's always a problem.
That's the impediment to development down there, is lack of parking.
Well, you know, I mean, one business, for instance, the ice cream place, just as you come into the village, you know, next to the fire station, that seems to be doing less volume than it should. Somebody is going to, I mean, if they do less volume than profitability, then that business would turn over. That's a high visibility area. All it needs is a little bit more attraction, and when a new business owner comes in, first thing they'll do is change a sign.
We already have an internally lit sign.
I know, but they have a manual letter sign, which could become an electronic sign. There's no distinction. You see what I'm saying? The
Yeah,
ordinance,
yeah, no, right, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't fall under this ordinance because it's an existing business, but.
well, right, no, but that's what I'm saying. There's no distinction between one lighted sign and another lighted sign and so forth, you know, so.
I mean, before we wrap this up, I mean, I agree with you. I think, you know, there's a sort of a lack of a level playing field between future businesses that come and fall under this ordinance, and the standards they have to meet, versus businesses that are already here that may sell and be converted to other businesses that don't trigger this ordinance. And you're right, you're gonna have business A who got a permit from the planning board, and business B who didn't, and business A is gonna point at business B and say, how come they can get away with it?
Well, in most cases, like in the Lakes Village district, most of those businesses have signs already. So if they fall within the 32 square foot area, you know, there's nothing that's gonna say that they can't change that externally lighted sign to an internally lighted sign. You know, it will change, and if one changes, then the next guy will change, and the next guy will change. It's something that you can't prevent the way that this is written because you have no control over it. And then because of the whole grandfather issue that you've mentioned before, it may never go away. I mean, in state law, you can grandfather something for 5 years, right? Somebody has a 5-year recapture on an existing non-conforming sign. And that came about because of the billboard law back in 1980, when that was implemented, when the billboards had 5 years to comply. Take it down, or the state would take it down. And so after 5 years, they were all gone. The state, in order to compensate the owner of that sign, gave them 5 years to recapture the value. And that's been pretty much established in every sign ordinance since for non-conforming signs. That if the town wants that sign to go away, it puts a moratorium on that type of sign and gives that sign 5 years life from that point of the new ordinance.
You know, my point earlier, and I didn't really present it very clearly, was similar to Peter's. You know, you may wish to consider going to the select board with a recommendation that Belgrade really needs a sign ordinance to regulate both, not only new, but existing signs. Because that sounds like that's the crux of your,
It does.
of your point.
Well, if the village district that you're talking about is Route 27, including Belgrade Lakes Village, it could end up turning out being something completely different than what you had intended. And you don't have any way of not allowing it. So, you know, that's another part about the way that this ordinance is written. Now that you mentioned that that's part of the, you know, it's not the village district that I thought of.
Right.
And with respect to that, you might have some conversation about, like I said, I don't know how you could do it. Historic district, now it's something else. Gary can tell you about historic districts. They've been arguing about that in Augusta for a while.
Well,
But,
thank you so much for bringing up these concerns, and I really hope that you can talk to the select persons about your observations of what this currently does relative to
well,
signs, or what it does not do, and that if you feel that a sign ordinance is warranted, then please bring it up with them.
well, the sign ordinance would fix everything, because you can say exactly what you want.
Perfect.
This has unintended consequences.
And I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, we are in a crunch period to get something finalized, so we can even have it brought to the voters. And we were told to do that by the select person,
Yeah.
so this is where we are. So,
Well,
just knowing that this is a living document, this too can be amended, you know, this can be stripped out, there can be a development of a sign ordinance, it can just stand separately.
well,
That's
you know,
where we
with
are.
a town meeting form of government, it's only like once a year when you can make those kinds of changes, so that's the other part.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And we are at that point now.
Right.
So,
Got it.
really
All right,
appreciate your expertise in this and bringing it forward. I only wish you could have done this 18 months ago.
well,
And,
I tried 10 years ago, but it didn't
Well-
want to deal with it.
I remember talking to, at some point, because we have something that I've kept with me, we're talking about signs,
Mm.
and, here it is.
You know, Mark?
Yep.
You came and gave a presentation to the planning board.
Yeah, and some of those things have to be taken into consideration, how the viewer deals with it.
Yep.
And that's where the 32 square foot falls short in high-speed areas. You know, you take from nearby here where the speed limit goes up to 55 all the way to the Sydney town line. I mean, you need distance to recognize what's going on
Understood.
and to be able to make a decision.
Right, and you explained that before, and that's why I kept that around, because of that very topic.
So usually in districts like that, you end up with more square footage. And so if you find that you have a problem when designating or fine tuning to specific areas, speed limit might be a way to do it, because that's not controlled by the town, it's established by the state.
Exactly.
And you have 25 miles an hour in Lakes Village, you have 40 miles an hour here. You know, so you could incrementalize the size based on speed limit.
Yep.
You know, a way to get an excuse to tweak it a little bit. But 55 miles an hour out there where Gagney is, well, actually Hammond Lumber also. That would be the longest distance you need to negotiate, make a decision in order to negotiate a turn. And I think then you start the application of traffic engineering to what you're trying to do. All right, thanks for your time.
Thanks very much. See ya. So where were we when we were going through this before? Where did we end when we were going through this?
Well, I don't know about others, but there were a few changes that we decided last time that either have typos with them or just, you know, no offense, Nick, you had a tough job to do, but it just didn't quite right.
Yep, that's fine.
I think we need to, fix those so that it's ready for finalization and to go public hearing.
Agreed.
And there is one thing that, I personally neglected, and I don't believe anybody else brought it up, that, was I think a good point that, Max Stucco had made, and that goes to the review criteria, that whole section. He had recommended we add one that speaks to, you know, parking's adequate, in other words. We don't have anything currently, which is kind of an oversight, and, I think that's something, that would be the only new thing that I think we should, address.
Is that parking adequate for the business or whatever?
Yeah, you know, safe and adequate or something like that. I actually came up with some language, but, pretty simple stuff, but anyway, I got about half a dozen things that I found going between the changes we decided upon and the version we have tonight that
Okay,
are just a little off.
do you want to start with the, well, how would you like to start, George? 'Cause the part about
What do
NAC-
others have?
I have about 5 or 6
Let's,
minor, well, all but one is real minor.
let's start with yours then, Rich.
Okay.
Page 6, under the current,
6 sounds awful familiar.
Yeah, we
maybe, and I wasn't here last time, so maybe you guys address, well, you apparently didn't. Transferability.
Yeah.
A permit is transferable to subsequent owners of the property, provided they have not expired.
Hang on, Rich, where are we? We're on
Page
page
6, 4.2.
Oh,
We
Yeah,
have lost out,
we-
they have.
provided the permit has not expired.
Okay.
So that was changed last time, but we made that change.
Now, I guess this, am I looking at an old version? I guess.
Yeah,
Okay, well, if that's
Is David
changed,
Wood the one whose name on it?
I thought so, I don't know.
That should be the one in there.
Yeah, it says Rich Baker.
Yeah.
but
We
it's
just
not
crossed,
changed
we
in
just
mine.
crossed out those 2 words.
Okay.
Next, pages?
Yeah.
A lot of things, before we get to that, George. We have also changed working days. Any place that we had like 7 working days, that's been changed to business days.
Or where it wasn't specified.
Right, that's
what kind of
throughout the
days.
whole thing. Like on page 12, there's 3 places, 4 places that's been changed.
Okay, you guys probably address this one too then, if I got it
Okay,
right.
what page are you on now?
Page 22. It goes from A to E on my version, but it should be A, B.
Right,
Can
right.
you fix that then too?
I did not.
But we did talk about it broadly, that there would be, you know, Word tends to do some things sometimes, you know, for you, kind of smart for you. We did try to
So,
So,
what was the problem, Rich?
it says A, B.
Oh, A, E.
We eliminated some stuff or whatever, and
Right.
it should go
Oh,
A, B,
I
C,
bet
D,
page
E.
numbers, so you're in material storage, no?
erosion
No,
control.
just before that.
Erosion control?
So section
Oh,
3
okay.
starts off with paragraph A, then it goes paragraph E,
Yeah.
so it should go,
Yeah, we're missing B and C.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, right,
And
that's
E,
all,
it's in there.
Okay.
yeah.
Typo.
That's, okay, page 27 on the next one. It's just a minor typo. Places of, in the table, about almost halfway down on the left, places of public assembly, spaces per seat, is it?
Oh, rather than set spaces?
Set, yes.
Set yourself down?
Yeah, yeah. It should be seat.
So you're saying it just changed set, from set, change it to seat, so SEAT?
The last one I had was page 32. Paragraph B, C1B. Your pages, it's just before signs.
Right,
My thinking here is we need to do something to the wording of the paragraph. Between a non-residential use and the right of way of any public road, no less than 2 existing full-size trees per 100-foot of frontage shall be retained. Tree species to be retained will have a maximum height of 30 feet. It goes on to say where no or insufficient full-size trees exist, native deciduous or coniferous trees shall be planted to meet the above specifications. Well, what if they're not full-size trees? You don't wanna have them plant anything. It says where no or insufficient full-size trees, suppose it's all medium-sized trees. This would, the way it's worded implies that you still need to plant trees. My recommendation would be to essentially say, essentially say where, in the second sentence, trees to be retained are those that have or will. I'm thinking we ought to say, quote, full-size trees are those that have or will have a minimum height of 50 feet of maturity. That way, when you have smaller trees,
how are you rewording that?
well, it's essentially take the, second sentence, trees to be retained,
Yeah,
essentially get rid of that phrase and say, full-size trees are those that have or will have a minimum height of 50 feet of maturity. So that way, ones are gonna grow to that size, they are full-size trees for the purposes of planting additional stuff. What I'm saying is, if you don't have any if what we normally think is full-size trees, big trees, huge trees,
Right.
but they got a whole bunch of little ones, or younger ones, that will grow to full-size trees. This paragraph, as you read into it, seems to say, well, you still gotta plant trees, because it says where no or insufficient full-size trees exist, native deciduous or coniferous trees shall be planted to meet the above specifications.
So you're,
What
so
if
you're
there's trees
suggesting
all
that
over the place,
second
they're just
line
not-
be, full-size trees or those that will have,
Yeah.
or, that are or have, will have?
Right.
Yeah, that works.
I think that works.
That
I
way-
think that next sentence gets at more of where, you know, you may have, 25 feet of trees, and then you have a big open space, and you need to fill it in, but, this accomplishes that.
I just wanted to make sure that, as it currently read, I read it to imply that if you don't have any full-size big trees,
Then start.
even if you got a bunch of little ones, you don't have full-size trees, so
Right.
therefore you gotta do plantings. And so you don't wanna plant if the fact is
Yeah, no,
there's
you-
smaller trees
yeah.
than one.
Yeah,
I think
you,
this
you
makes
planted a
sense.
6-foot tree when you got 25-foot trees.
Yeah,
So did you get that, Nick?
yeah, and put it in parentheses, full-size trees, because that kind of that addresses specifically what we're talking about in that sentence. And other than that, I'm done.
Great. George, what do you have for,
Yeah. It's about, like I said, a half a dozen. So starting on page 3, under the applicability, section 1B, the change is basically correct, but, I think it needs some punctuation, and you gotta decide on format. So after criteria in the third line there, I think we need a colon. After criteria, because then we're going down to either, we gotta decide if we're gonna use bullets or if we don't use bullets, then we shouldn't use, lettering, we should use, Arabic numbers.
See that?
where are we starting?
On Article 3,
Yeah.
Section 1, applicability B, on page 3.
How does yours read?
It reads, expansion of an existing non-residential building or structure, including accessory buildings and structures that exceed either one of the following 2 criteria, in colon. And then we have under that, insert, indented either bullets or AB, and I would suggest we get rid of the letters.
Ours reads, after you have structures, it said that exceed 25% of existing footprint, or if greater than 1
Yeah,
ton.
that's what we changed last time.
Yeah, we changed, we took out or,
Yeah, and we had this list,
yeah.
and I'm
We
just saying,
changed or.
right, but we,
We got the same version I got here, that's the
oh,
old one.
So what we had done with this one here.
yeah,
we
no,
took-
this is what, the version that Nick just sent us, it looks like this.
See that?
I agree, get rid of the letters of the bullets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You have that?
Then in the same page, in F, there's, in square feet of, and on the third line, third line down, square feet of the footprint area, yeah. It's just a place where footprint got missed.
Oh, Right.
Square feet of footprint.
Yeah, this was based, Rich, just for your benefit, comments we got from Dick Warren.
Right. Just to be consistent.
I'm relying on the version that you sent us, Nick, so that's
Yeah,
why, that, I don't know how we got different versions
I
of it.
didn't hand out any versions today. This makes sense.
So on page 6 of the most current version, so that would be Article 4, Section 4. We had made changes to the whole business about expiration of the permit. Gary, I remember you
Yeah.
weighing in on this too, and they just didn't happen, let's put it that way. And so what we decided on before, and I'll just read it and then I can give it to you, Nick, if people still agree with it, is to rewrite that to, the comment was, we don't, it isn't the, what's the terminology? The way it's written, it's that like we permit a substantial start, and in fact, we issue a permit for the development. So permits, we rewrote that to, permits are valid for 12 months from the date of the town's approval. New sentence, a substantial start of construction must be completed within this 12-month time period. Upon request from the permittee, permit approval may be extended for a maximum of one additional 12-month period. We decided that
From 2 to 1.
from 2 years to 1 year. The other thing I picked up on was, and we didn't talk about this last time, in the last sentence, the applicant shall obtain another permit as required by this ordinance by submitting another application to the planning board, well, or the code enforcement officer. It could be either.
Oh, good point.
So if people are okay with that, I just typed it out.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good catch.
Right, because literally, if you were to read that, you'd say that the only way they could apply for it is to say,
Not us.
only
Yeah, even if they originally got a permit from Gary,
Yeah.
they'd have to come back to us,
It would be silly.
and that doesn't make any sense. So my next one is another minor footprint area one. And so it's on page 11, Nick. And so that is for everybody else, we're in the, we're in section 5, application procedure 5.4, for J, where the amount, and it says 75 square feet, in second line, it says 75 square feet in footprint area.
75 or 700?
7,500. That would be more serious. Get that okay, Nick?
The end of that same item, it, you know,
Right.
J, 30,000 square feet.
Yeah, and it there as well. Right.
And then the plan shall be prepared by a licensed professional engineer, period, period, comma. Just strike the comma. Thank you. Sorry, George.
No, that's fine. Okay, Nick, you ready for the next one?
I think so.
Okay. Rock and roll here. Okay, so that brings us to Article 5, the review criteria. This is what I mentioned earlier in page 21 for the newest version of the ordinance. This gets proposed activity provides safe and adequate parking.
Sounds good to me.
I would certainly not object to that, that seems like it's so obvious, maybe that was why we even looked at it. But that's good, I'm so glad you said that.
So you with me there, Nick?
It's on page 18.
Page 21.
On ours, it happens to be 18.
No, really?
Serious as a heart attack.
Criteria as on each.
Review criteria, page 18.
So this is one I printed out myself. I wonder if my printer just prints it out differently.
Perhaps because of, could be a pagination thing with, something.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, cause,
So I'm just off in my own little piece of the universe is what you're saying?
you know, cause if your settings are such that the margins are
Oh, sure, different.
different, you could impact.
Yep, yep.
So,
So, I have no clue what page, but,
okay.
Article 5 at the very end there.
Yeah.
So that would be XV triple I.
Mm-hmm.
And, the proposed activity provides safe and adequate parking, period.
I have a question about that. Who determines safe and adequate?
Well, that would be based on our parking standards. So if you look at any one of these review criteria, say,
Anyone?
yeah, anyone, you know, the proposed activity shall conform to, and, you know, other ordinances, you know, or, well, actually, that's a poor example. The proposal activity will provide for adequate stormwater management. Well, that's based on did they meet the standards of the ordinance,
Okay. Great, thanks.
which, you know, are in the following article. Get that okay, Nick? Okay. Again, no clue what page I'm on. So Article 5, Article 6. Section 6, which is natural resource protection. In the, paragraph number 1. First line, we had decided to eliminate insofar as possible.
Yep.
And that didn't happen.
So we have that on page 24.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll translate.
I'll speak Latin, you can translate it.
Yeah, so it'd be
English.
section 6A, 1, and then after it says site development shall minimize.
Yep.
We wanted to eliminate insofar as possible.
All set. So next one is, section 9, parking, and it's the paragraph just above the table, which is a couple of pages further along,
Yep.
which starts with adequate off-street parking shall. The second line, reads, provide the basic standard required parking, and, some language was, not added that we had decided upon, for various should be added there, so read parking for various proposed land uses. See where I'm talking, Nick? Not yet. messages, after limited, you should insert the word to, TO. So it reads, shall be limited to text messages. Same paragraph, 1, 2, 3 more lines down, or second to last line, that starts, then put 50-foot candles as measured at 100 rather than foot, should be feet. So it reads at 100 feet from the sun. Last one. Oh, no, that's it.
So I have a question for everybody, because I want to, it's really about kind of format, it's really that type of question. So, is it accurate that we want to have for every article where there's a section, that there's a period following the number after section? So for example, if you say Article 6, if a person were to read it, would you see Article 6, then building standards, then if you were to zip through each section, you see Section 1, period, space, air quality. Section 2, period, access to public streets. Is that a fair statement?
Looks like the only place that I can find a period after the number is section 1.
Okay,
Real
so
quick.
on mine, I'm seeing it mostly everywhere. I just wanna make sure that the final product.
I think we just need to decide one way or the other.
Yeah, and just go for it.
Right.
I like the period myself.
What's that?
I said I like the period myself.
I think it makes sense. So would you be so kind as to make sure that wherever it says section followed by a number, that there's a period right there?
Well, I'm looking at mine here, I'm looking at like page 20, section 1, and 2 have a period. Then I go on to 3, 3 does not have a period.
Right.
I go on to 4, and it does have a period.
That's why I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
just to make it
Right.
consistent or not.
Yep.
The other thing about format, this is not a criticism at all, Nick, it's, I don't know what font it is on mine for Article 6, Section 1. It's something different than Section 2. So I would just ask that whatever, like header or whatever.
This one is more consistent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's really professional looking
Yeah,
document.
definitely.
So I guess I would recommend that whatever font and, whatever, it's the same.
Yeah, I've looked about that, because you go on 8 and 9 doesn't have a period.
Exactly, Roger, that type of stuff.
Is what? No. Last week, Ned gave them out, the new ones, and I told
Guess I'm
Pete,
looking from last week's, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
I told Pete, is this one we get? He said, yeah. Nick said, yes. I said, well, put Richard's name on it, so that we're on the same page, because I ended up with 3 of them.
That's why I have.
And the reason why pages are different in line, for some reason, I printed out from the email you sent us,
Yeah.
the comment under track changes are still on this one for some reason, and I don't know why. Could you eliminate them, haven't you?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, that's- So for some reason, mine printed out with them still on. And
Interesting.
it,
Because that throws off.
I mean, as if this isn't hard enough.
Let's make it more difficult, right?
2 weeks ago, I had 3 different ones going, let's go.
Okay,
Can I ask a couple of quick questions?
absolutely.
That came to mind when Mr., whatever his name was.
Lassard.
Paul Lassard. Something George said that I wanna make sure that I'm in sign, a 32 square feet. That can be a double-sided sign, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so the sign itself, okay. The other thing is, when you were talking to him back and forth, it almost appeared, and I just wanna make sure that we're on the same wavelength here, grandfathered facilities. If this ordinance passes, Hammond's signs are grandfathered, of course, but they're not grandfathered from any new sign that would come on the property, correct?
Correct.
That would be
So
my,
just because they're grandfathered
Yep.
doesn't mean they're grandfathered for whatever they wanna do.
Right.
So if they really won't be able to put more signs out there because they're already at 32 square feet.
Well, was that their new store approved under this ordinance? The only way we would have jurisdiction over anything they did there was either they expanded, let's put it this way, yeah, so at their existing facility, at their existing store, if they expanded it in such a way that they triggered this ordinance, and part of that was a sign, then the sign standard would apply. But if they,
They don't have a permit for us for originally building the facility, you're saying?
I don't know if they do, I mean, if they did, it would have predated, obviously,
Okay.
me coming on board, but.
Okay, well, my thinking was that whether they had a permit under this ordinance before, that if they're already at the sign standard, they can't further.
Right.
No, see, they have to trigger the ordinance first for that standard to even apply.
Yeah, that's right.
right,
So they'd have to build a building of 1,200 square feet or do something. So for example, like, the area that we approved for them most recently, which is just that, what do they call it, lay down facility, I guess.
Yeah.
There, we could, if they come back to us with a building and with a sign, then they would have to comply with the 32 square feet and all the other standards that are applied to that sign. But, you know,
Yep.
they, Christie's, Day Store,
Right.
you know, any
Yeah.
existing business that predates the,
And
never
it
fell
doesn't
under,
trigger
or
that.
never fell under this ordinance.
Right, yeah.
It, you know, none of the standards apply because the whole ordinance doesn't apply.
so the only way to have control over it would be to have a sign ordinance.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, yeah, I mean, and that was, I think, his point, that, or at least one of them, that, you know, you have people that apply under this ordinance, you know, having to comply with somewhat standard, you know, somewhat stringent standards, and, that, you know, attempt at least to be, consistent with the comprehensive plan, whereas Christie's can do whatever the hell they damn well please.
That's grandfather, you know?
I mean, you know, so in terms of signs or anything else,
So it's like the sign he's got there now that says green log cabins.
Yeah.
That is according to what we have written down, but that can be changed to strolling. 'Cause
well,
it's already a lit sign. It's
Yeah,
not a
you
new
could-
sign, it's
yeah,
an
they
existing
could
sign,
have
he can just
multiple-
go from one to
you
the
can
you know, or they could add
Right.
another, you know, whatever the,
Yeah.
another lumber company sign on their building. I mean, they, you know, got pretty much every manufacturer known to man on their buildings at now.
Yep.
True.
So that's, you know, that's sort of the disconnect that he was describing, at least that's
Well,
what I,
that's
how
what-
I.
That's what triggered my question, I'm thinking, geez, you know, the ordinance comes into effect, you can't make something more non-conforming. If the sign is non-conforming, I guess the key is
It's gotta be something that has to go before the.
Yeah, it has to-
This is
Right.
grandfathered.
Yeah, I mean, we only regulate what, you know, triggers the applicability section of the ordinance.
That's-
I mean, this is not a comprehensive ordinance.
Right,
It doesn't even capture all new commercial development. It only captures the larger commercial development, basically, unless somebody converts a residence to
Yeah.
a business or something.
right, exactly.
So,
That help?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I had the same discussion with, my wife just couldn't wrap her head around it. She said, you mean somebody could start a small business and, you know, and this isn't supposed to be a business regulation ordinance. It's for, you know, businesses and non-residential uses of a certain size.
Right.
So someone could start a home occupation, essentially, and have a bigger sign than 32 square feet.
Yeah,
Yep,
they could do it next to my house in Westerville.
correct.
Yep.
That's exactly right.
This doesn't capture everything.
It was not intended to,
No.
right? That's the reality. So, moving along, just for the sake of trying to get some additional business done, I'm anxious that we can perhaps approve some minutes so they can be posted to the website.
Is that a lot of them?
Peter, can we just wrap up the ordinance in the sense of,
Yeah.
what's our next step? I mean, Nick is gonna make the changes, or has already made the changes that we've just described, that Rich and I have raised, and I don't know if anybody else has any, but, you know, edits basically, and, what's our next step? I mean, we need to set up our public hearing, I don't know how to do that.
Right, I'm relying heavily on the town manager, so please ask the town manager to tell us how to go to the next step, you know.
And that our understanding is, you know, we're supposed to have a public hearing, and then the select board is supposed to hold a public hearing.
So we need to be advised on how to make that happen. Because working backwards, we need to make sure that both things are accomplished before basically mid-January.
Based on what Michael Barrett told us.
Yeah. We don't want to miss any dates. Okay.
Good.
That's, yeah, I'm glad, thank you for bringing us back to that point. Okay, do we have some minutes, in at least all of us have some minutes?
I got some there on my desk.
What do you got for minutes there, Mr. Baker? Have the minutes?
We go back,
August 4th, we go back that far?
Yeah. We got July 21st, August 4th, August 16th, September 1st, September 15th, October 20th, last week. That I haven't downloaded, because I don't have the email at home.
really,
My wife bought a new computer, and I tell you, we're having a rash of shit with everything.
that's no good.
Do you need, last week's minutes?
Surely, thank you.
Before I have to just get more and stuff.
Do you need last
got-
meeting's
And the
minutes?
technician
Same
for
computer
it,
forever.
same one, they were saying they wash the screen, that's what do it.
Maybe
We
we
would
have a
accept our
special
previous email
planning
for
board meeting just
.com.
to do minutes.
So Staples gave us a new one through Google, and she can't get on Google at home.
That's very frustrating.
I think you had
We
this
still
one.
want to hold the time one. Tell them that we changed computer, and they're saying they're not recognizing the new computer. Jesus. Well, come recognize the old one, 'cause it's going out to the trash.
So, do you want to do this one at a time?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
there's so many.
Yeah.
Could we start with July 21, get some of those ones done? Everybody have July 21?
Yep.
So we had President were Peter, Roger, George, and Pete Sargent. So if I'm thinking about this correctly, then 3 of us who were present at the meeting are ones who are capable of voting on the minutes. Is that right?
You get anything with it, George?
Well, I do, it seems like we're missing a lot of the discussion in the, what we concluded at the meeting with regard to the Winscott. I'm sorry, never mind, wait a minute, yeah, it seems like this is the one,
Which one are you on? I'm sorry.
July 21st.
July
Oh,
21st.
yeah, okay.
I mean, for example, it misses, at a minimum, it should say that, you know, Mr. Turner from Bowler Engineering, you know, they agreed to, they decided to withdraw the application. missing, so I don't know how to deal with that.
Hmm.
So what do you wanna do, table this one until Nick can find out what's missing?
Well, there's one, see, Mary took the notes
Yeah,
on
we're
it,
gonna be.
but there should be a recording of it.
I would think, I come up with
I think maybe that would be the easiest way,
I
rather than me
believe,
trying to,
right, pull from memory, so here's what I'm gonna recommend. Would you please go back and try and find the recording to pull out the most, important features? Things like the conclusion that they decided to do something. And then, fill in some of those gaps here, because I think George has a good point. We only have a start. There are more things that happen. So therefore, I'd like to table these still,
Yes.
until we get a more,
and it's particularly important on this one. I mean, it
that.
may be dead, but it may not
may
be.
not be dead, right, exactly. So eventually what could happen, just so you know, I don't wanna speak for George, but in my mind, what could happen is we may wanna, at some point, see all minutes. And if we do get to that point, and if we look at these, I think we'd be scratching our head and saying, Jesus, what really happened? You know,
Especially with-
Did I give you the stuff that Lynn Scott gave me, that you requested? The change deeds, stuff like that? Did I give it to you?
I don't remember.
He sent it to me?
I don't think you have.
Pretty sure I did.
It was a while ago though, wasn't it?
No, it was before, right around vacation time.
Oh.
Oh,
Maybe,
well, maybe, I don't know.
was it, who was it?
There was some deeds that he had changed that said that those lots didn't have to be part of the road association.
Right, and that they could access the West Road directly.
Yeah, you asked for that stuff.
Right.
I did see it, but I don't seem to have it on my desk, so you may have it.
I might have, yeah, I don't think that one.
Okay, if you do,
Who is it?
Yeah, that's-
Lynn Scott
Yeah.
Development, if you do, the board needs to see that at some point.
Okay. So, having said that, should we move on to August 4th then? So Peter, Roger, Rich, sorry, George, Seal, Craig, okay, we can all vote on this thing.
You have some comments on the second page, I don't think you have anything on the first.
The only thing I have is format one, Peter, and I don't know how you wanna handle this in minute, I don't remember how we've handled it in the past, but, and that is the page numbering. It would seem to me that, like, in the footer, maybe, we have like page 1 of 2, you know, so that at the foot of every page, we have page, 1 of 2, and even possibly when you have minutes that go multiple pages, the date of the planning board meeting, like August 4th, 2016 planning board minutes, so that, you know, if the pages get separated into town files.
Yep, that's a good point.
You know, sort of basic,
So,
record management stuff.
a way to do that would be to have a header,
Yeah.
right, and a footer, and then the footer, at least a page number, and the header, at least have those, and then, document, actually page header, you'd have the town of Belgrade planning board minutes. I think it's a very good point, because no matter what happens with digital stuff, printout stuff,
Yeah.
you need to be able to match it.
Well, and for a lot of things, like shoreline zoning in particular, this is it in terms of a public record.
about format and record keeping and going forward. So Rich, you had something on page 2, I believe, for a second. I see
Yeah,
that.
two things, one very small, first sentence, George Seal explaining, I think it should say requires a soil erosion control plan rather than a soil erosion plan.
Oh, yeah.
You don't concur.
We absolutely need to have that soil erosion.
Yeah, so erosion control plan, so put in the word control between erosion and plan. Good catch.
Alright, and then the third paragraph, I think to be a little bit more correct or whatever, I think it should say the planning board agreed and strike out to approve. Agreed that before approval of the application, strike out contingent on the. Let's see, the board agreed that before approval of the application, a site visit was necessary and the application needed to be further completed.
So the planning board agreed, then strike to approve.
Yeah, agreed that before approval of the application.
So we have to add some words. So the planning board agreed that before,
Approval of the application. And then strike contingent on the. Approval of the application, comma, a site visit was necessary.
so add a. And then add was necessary. And comma, I guess.
And that the application needed to be further completed. Which doesn't address the rest of the sentence. Says revised application and with the stormwater estimate.
Well, it's almost like additionally, right, right, it's the. Which is.
I guess I'm not sure what to do after the.
Almost sounds like trees are gonna cut down, you're gonna stick them back in the ground.
Where's that at?
On that third paragraph.
Oh.
Joyce Hill noted that requirements that all trees removed during the rebuilding are replaced. Should it be like replanted?
Oh, I see,
Replanted would be fine.
sure.
And should that also be no further back from the lake?
I don't know. Let's go back up to that other
Yeah.
sentence that
Yeah.
Rich had and see if we can't clean it up a little bit. So we have the planning board agreed that before approval of the application, a site visit was necessary. Boy, is that
Why don't we put a comment, maybe put a period. there.
period, right?
Yeah.
Necessary, period. Does it make sense to say? I'm not sure what revised application, how that would apply here. I think what we were saying was that,
I'm thinking to get rid of the whole thing. The revised application, it was addressed by needed to be further completed. And stormwater best management plan, since we really didn't approve the application that night,
just strike the whole thing.
we could strike the issue of stormwater best management practices, because that had to do with a conditional approval. Well, we didn't approve it then. That's really what I'm trying to get at, so we didn't really approve it with the contingent on the site visit. We can't really approve it before we go on, the site visit, so
Let's strike.
I tried to word it so that we, what's that?
So if we just strike from revised to into the lake,
Perspective. Does that not get to your point?
We could almost leave it the way it is. George suggested just instead, get rid of the word "to" and say the planning board agreed it could approve the application contingent on a site visit, revised application and condition delivered. And then the next paragraph says we table it, so there's nothing here that said we did approve it. This just said we could approve it if we go to the site visit.
Oh,
So
okay.
just change to it could, and leave everything else the way it is.
Okay,
And
all
I'll
right.
propose to shut up the rest of the minutes. We just killed 30 minutes on.
That's okay.
All right, just the book right there.
Yeah. You know, I'd love to get through August if possible.
Just what we need to do.
Such,
We're 30 minutes over, so, what's that?
We're done with this one?
I don't know, are there any comments in the, Wasabi Harriman section?
the only one I had was, in the second paragraph of that item, that agenda item, which, starts with Mr. Manson explained, the very last line of that same paragraph, currently in the process of performing topography, I would insert mapping after topography. So it would read, currently in the process of performing topography mapping of the property in question.
Oh,
Like Toby Reddick was wrong to go there.
Yes.
yeah, mapping can't stand, I mean, topography just can't stand on its own. Okay, good point. I'm okay with the rest. I've been on it. Okay, so we do have some edits. Anything else?
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Seconded. Any more discussion? All All those in favor? Woo, we got one done. Can we do August 18th?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Give us a sense of accomplishment.
I know, truly. Rich. I guess it goes without saying that we apply the document header, page footer to all, and that's good, thank you.
I have one comment on the last sentence on the front page. He also noted that the roof will rather than will. A couple minor typos in here.
Let's do it.
New business, it's the second page of it. Under GNL contracting, first paragraph, the, next to the last sentence, the proposed is 22 feet in height, cross out letter A. And two sentences further, the George Seal noted that he feels the MP's bill being altered and that crushed rock will be added.
So rather than stone crushed rock.
That crushed, it apparently says, and the crushed rock will be added, it should really say, and that crushed with ED, stone be added.
Oh, okay, gotcha. And that crushed stone be added.
I have something on the last page.
I think we're there.
Okay, the first paragraph on the last page, planning board discussed comments made by the board of select persons at their presentation, next line, they were in agreement that some changes could be made to some areas to appease the board. I just don't like that word appease, I don't know, just,
Didn't set well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would eliminate, made, let's see, some areas to appease, I would eliminate that word, those four words, and add, substitute,
accept the minutes of August 18th as amended.
Okay, gotcha, good point.
I'll second that.
And second, okay. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Gentlemen, it's 9:35. Leave it up to you. Do you wanna do any more, or should we call it good for tonight?
Does anybody have changes to September 1? Any significant one? I see yours has red.
No, no, I don't, not significant, it's not worth, you know.
I don't know.
Well, I do have
All
one.
right,
Go ahead, let's cover it. Let's just do it, let's get it over with.
Very last paragraph on the second page. I think some additional wordings needed to capture what we actually concluded. It currently reads, the planning board members were in agreement that a good faith effort was made to address the concerns of the select persons, and I would add the language, and agree on the changes.
Yeah.
It's an important point.
And I have one thing, the same, last page, first paragraph, fourth from the last word, charges, to be charged. Just change the S to a D.
So, I think, organized by.
That's an easy catch.
So Nick, we're keeping you busy enough, or what?
So, for the minutes of September 1, are there other edits? We've had 2 so far. Anything else? Motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of September 1st as amended.
Perfect.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Okay, so let's table the other two until next month.
How many you got? 2?
Three, actually.
Three.
How come there's, only one for October?
Because we had the informational meeting
Oh.
on that second ordinance.
Actually, it would be the first meeting in October that we don't have minutes for, right?
In October?
Yeah.
October
We do
6th.
For 6, right?
I don't have it.
I have 6 up right here.
Oh, I have minutes for October 20th, but that may be my fault.
Yeah, I do have 6.
I don't have the 20th, but I have 6.
So make sure you do.
We got 5, we got the one that we need.
Well, we'll take it with next time.
Next time.
So, thank you, everybody, we stayed again, well after 9, thank you for your time, consideration, efforts, really appreciate it. We get Gary out later than need be.
Gary, do you have any sense of
Sounds
what?
like he's gonna go
Meeting
back.
on
At
it.
9:40.
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet.
Sounds like you ought to go back on vacation.
Huh?
You're
Ah,
doing-
yeah.